Do you know what is propaganda? Have a look at this picture. This is an illustration done by a very famous British media outlet. So according to this picture, Russia's massacres in Ukraine have shocked the world. Basically, they are talking about the Bucha massacre. Let me first clear out the smoke regarding Bucha massacre. Bucha is a place situated 25 kilometers west of capital city of Kyiv. I guess you must have heard about the Bucha massacre that emerged on the internet on 1st or 2nd April through photographic and video material. The Western leaders, Western media and also the Ukrainian government has made an allegation that this massacre or this killing of the Ukrainian civilians was done by Russian armed forces between February and March during the Russia-Ukraine war. So the Western political leaders, then Western media outlets, and the Ukrainian government is claiming that Russian troops have killed these people and they are responsible for this massacre. On the other hand, Russia has denied all the allegations, since Russian media has been banned from almost all social media platforms. But I believe Russia today is active on Twitter and Instagram, and hence they are responding from these handles as much as they can. So anyhow, the West is putting the blame on Russia and Russia has denied it. And they even say that this killing was done by the neo-Nazi group who are called the Botsman Boys, who are from the Azov battalion of Ukrainian Defense Forces. They moved into the city of Bucha a day after Russian forces left Bucha. This is the same militia which was once banned by the United States. The US Congress in 2016 passed a law in Pentagon which bans funding as well as banning any kind of military training activities of the Azov battalion. They named it as neo-Nazi group. But then today it is part of the Ukrainian forces. And then in the year 2017, the United States had lifted the ban on this neo-Nazi group. And if you remember, during the Russia-Ukraine war, the United States did not provide any troop support to Ukraine. But then the United States did provide funds as well as military weapons to Ukraine to fight against Russia. So obviously when the Ukrainian forces were fighting against Russians, both the sides had to face casualties, right? And both the sides would also know the weapons they were carrying. And this is what the Russian government is saying, that the weapons that were shipped to Ukraine by the United States were found in the hands of the neo-Nazis of the Azov battalion. Now obviously, why would you believe the Russian news agency? Similarly, why should we also believe the Western media? So what I'm trying to say is that if the West is accusing Russia of something, Russia is also giving counter-arguments. And likewise, if Russia is accusing the Western media is trying their best to counter it. So anyhow, the Russian government has claimed that the Russian forces left Bucha on March 30th. And all the news material, which includes video clippings, photos of the Bucha massacre, started appearing on the internet from April 3rd. And of course, all of this was documented by the Ukrainian army. And they took it to the internet because that's what they have been doing right from day one. Anyhow, so the point is, the West is blaming the massacre on Russia. On the other hand, Russia has denied and said it's a false flag operation by the Ukrainian government. You remember that movie Behind Enemy Lines, the first part, starring Owen Wilson? There was a scene in that movie where the US military found a mass grave in Bosnia through their satellite imagery. So basically the movie was trying to show how the United States found out about a genocide cover-up done by the Bosnian army. You see, Bosnia and Serbia had issues between them. And then the United States has also intervened in that. Anyhow, the point is not about what Bosnia did to Serbia. The point is, if you have watched that movie, in that the mass grave scene, the same plot is being played out in this Bucha massacre. So anyhow, we still don't have any solid and direct evidence who exactly did the Bucha massacre. In fact, the Belarus president has blamed the UK Special Forces, and of course the UK has denied it. Anyhow, the point is, why is that the West and the Western media's narrative is to be trusted and accepted when it is clearly visible that they are trying hard to push it down our collective throats? Similarly, one can even say even Russia has a narrative, and even they are trying to push that through whatever limited social media window they have. To be very frank, if you pay close attention, you will notice that Russia is not even justifying proactively. It is responding to the Western allegation. Because practically if you see, the Western media dominates the internet. So the fact of the matter is, both the sides have their own narrative. We don't know exactly who did all of this killing. In fact, an independent investigation has also been recommended by many countries. Probably United Nations may do that. But then the question is, what do you mean by an independent investigation? The harsh truth is, there is no such thing as independent investigation. If you ask the United Nations to do it, then they have more supporters of the West. And if you involve non-aligned countries to be the jury, then they will face indirect threats and pressure to take sides. So in all practicality, there is no such thing as independent investigation. But even then, there has to be an independent investigation. So until a thorough independent investigation is done, one should not jump to any conclusion, right? I mean, that is what is neutral thinking, right? Then why is it that the Western media is trying hard to push their agenda that it makes you almost feel cynical about everything that the West stands for, be it democracy, human rights, freedom of speech and whatnot? And then if you look at this illustration, they have unnecessarily included India. It is so stupid of them to do that. Just because India is buying heavily discounted oil from Russia, does it really mean India is supporting the murderers? As I said, first let there be a fair investigation of the Bucha massacre. Only then we can know who the real culprit is. India is buying oil to meet its own energy security. It is because of the United States, today oil prices across the globe has gone up. I have a video called How Not to Be a Victim of Western Sanctions. In that I have explained in detail how it is because of the United States policies, today we see rise in fuel prices across the globe. Watch that video, you will understand everything. The Indian External Minister gave a befitting reply and called out Western countries' hypocrisy during the 2+2 meeting. He also gave a similar reply on March 31st. He said Europe bought 15% more oil and gas from Russia during this war. Even now Europe is saying that it will cut Russian gas import by 2/3 before the end of this year. That means they are still importing Russian oil and gas. And they will continue to do so till the end of this year. The Indian Foreign Minister gave an amazing reply regarding Europe's energy import. He said, India's total purchase of the Russian oil for 1 month is less than what Europe does in an afternoon. So this is what is called hypocrisy. On one hand, you are sanctioning Russia, but then on the other hand, you are also doing business with Russia. And for any of you who believes in the emotional side that Europe needs oil and gas for its citizens, that is why they are being smart and at the same time they are being righteous in sanctioning Russia, well then we have a problem in our perceptions. If this sounds okay to you, then not believing the Western narrative or what the Western government is saying is also okay. Look at the United States. United States banned Russian oil imports since the beginning of March. But let's also know how they replaced the supply. Well, they first approached Saudi Arabia to increase their oil production. And if you remember, Saudi Arabia and UAE leaders did not pick up Joe Biden's call. And they even said if you want more oil, then you produce it yourself. And then you must have also heard that the US officials were also making a trip to Venezuela. If you all know, it is the United States sanction against Venezuela that ruined the economy of Venezuela. Although many even say that socialism, corruption destroyed the Venezuelan economy, but then if you read about the whole issue, you will realize that the United States played an important role in destroying the Venezuelan economy. And today they are reaching out to the Venezuelan government. Why? Because of self-interest. US wants oil because their own domestic market is getting affected. So apart from reaching out to OPEC and Venezuela, if you remember by the end of 2021, that is in December, the Biden administration had approved more oil and gas drilling permits on American public land. So basically, if you remember in the beginning of 2021, when Joe Biden came to office, he announced the Democrats' new energy doctrine. And if you remember, the American Democratic Party has a climate agenda. They want to reduce the climate cost of domestic fuel production by moving towards renewable energy. And at the same time, United States also wants to neutralize Russian leverage on Europe and reduce domestic reliance on Russian fossil fuel. And all of this happened last year. So if you look at the Russian-Ukraine war, it cannot be a coincidence that it all started all of a sudden. United States had a plan. That is why they started giving more oil and gas drilling permits. Just think about it, why would they do that? They would only do it if they have a plan of destroying the Russian economy without firing a single bullet. And that's exactly what happened in 2022. So all of this cannot be a mere coincidence. It was all planned. United States moving out of Afghanistan was planned. United States finding another conflict zone in this world, that is Ukraine, was also planned. So this kind of illustration is actually a fake narrative being created by the Western media so that they can make India look bad and impose guilt. And that way they think India will eventually submit to the Western narrative. So this is what the Western media is doing. And now I will show you what the Western governments are doing. United States is putting indirect pressure on India by saying statements like this. United States also tried to provoke and instigate India by saying if China breaches LAC again, Russia will not come running to India's defense. As if the US has ever helped India. In fact, US has done the opposite. Here's a list of events that the US has done against India. Last month in March, if you remember, the US intelligence said that the Indian government is not going to tolerate Pakistan's provocation. The point here is not whether India will tolerate or not. If India has to do something, it will do it without even asking anyone. But this statement of the United States will make you feel it was unnecessary for the US to say this. Because even if India has an intention of something like that, US has clearly spilled the beans. Even this statement of the United States was uncalled for. And then in the ongoing 2+2 meeting, when the Indian Foreign Minister called out Western countries' hypocrisy, before the Indian Foreign Minister's statement, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken said this. This is called coercion, trying to pressurize India, or you can say bullying. If you watch the video, I cannot put the footage on this video, but if you can watch the footage, you will notice when the Indian Foreign Minister was saying in a very calm, composed and polite manner, with no second thought or hesitation, in a very straightforward manner he was saying, and I quote, "We watch what's happening in the world, and based on our understanding we draw our own conclusions and make our assessments." And he also said we, as in India, has a decent sense of what is in our interest and know how to protect it in advance. So when he said this line, you should have looked at the facial expression of the US Secretary of State. He did not look happy. So you see, the Western government and leaders are trying to put indirect pressure on India, and their media outlets are carrying out pseudo-intellectual narratives. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you for watching it.